There's a kind of fun that only exists when everyone is in the same room. A single TV, a PlayStation 2 humming under it, 4 people sitting way too close together because the controller cords don't reach far enough. Someone is already yelling, someone is already laughing, and someone is already accusing someone else of cheating before the game even starts. This wasn't online multiplayer. This was living room multiplayer. You didn't queue up, you showed up. And the PS2 era was full of games made for that exact feeling. Short rounds, simple rules, pure chaos. The kind of games where the person who's worst at gaming could still win a round and scream like they just conquered the world. But here's the weird part. The PS2 didn't just have one party game style. It had 2 formats that slowly started to dominate everything. One turned the living room into a game show with big, colorful buttons and instant reactions. And the other got rid of the controller completely and turned you into the controller. Buzz-style party games and EyeToy camera games. 2 different ways to make a room explode with energy. And in the end, they didn't just define PS2 party gaming. They quietly reshaped what party gaming even meant. Before Buzz and EyeToy became the formats most people remember, the PlayStation 2 already had the ingredients that made party games possible. Local multiplayer was still the standard. If you wanted to play with other people, you were usually doing it in the same room, on the same screen, passing controllers around or plugging extra ones in through the multitap. And by the early 2000s, Nintendo had already proven how big this type of game could be. The Mario Party series had turned board game chaos and fast minigames into one of the most recognizable multiplayer formats of that era. So naturally, developers on PlayStation started experimenting with their own versions of that formula. One of the clearest examples was Pac-Man Fever. The structure was immediately familiar. Players moved around a board collecting items and coins, and every few turns the game would throw everyone into a minigame. Those minigames were short, fast, and often chaotic. One round might have players racing to grab objects before someone else reached them first, while another could turn into a quick reaction challenge where a single mistimed button press meant losing instantly. Other PlayStation games experimented with the same idea in different ways. Ape Escape, pumped and primed, mixed the minigame formula with arena-style competition, filling its rounds with gadgets, traps, and frantic movement.
Whoever misses the fewest shots wins.
This is my favorite game!
Shrek Super Party followed the board game structure almost directly, turning the movie's characters into playable competitors in a series of minigames built around collecting items and outscoring other players. And games like My Street or Muppets Party Cruise showed just how many developers were trying to build their own version of the party game formula on PlayStation. None of these games became the defining face of the genre on PS2, but together they show something important. The PlayStation 2 already had a real party game ecosystem before the biggest formats arrived. And when those formats finally appeared, they didn't come out of nowhere. They stepped into a genre that was already trying to figure out its own answer to Mario Party. One of those answers came with buzzers. Buzz stood out for one simple reason. Its controller didn't look like a normal PlayStation controller at all. It looked like a toy. 4 large colored buttons, a giant red buzzer on top, and a design that anyone could understand instantly. You didn't need to learn complicated controls, you just needed to react faster than everyone else in the room. And that simple idea ended up becoming the foundation for one of the most chaotic party game series on the PS2. Because instead of trivia questions, these next games turned those buzzers into pure minigame madness. Jungle Party was where this whole thing really clicked. Released in 2006, it took the Buzz Buzzer idea and turned it into something much closer to pure party game chaos. Instead of trivia, you got 40 fast minigames, cartoon monkey avatars, and a jungle theme that felt like it existed purely to create noise in the living room. And that was the point. Jungle Party wasn't trying to be deep. It was trying to be immediate. The second it started, you understood the energy. Bright colors, silly ape characters, fast reactions, and the kind of mini-games where winning by a split second could make the whole room explode. It felt messy on purpose, and that made it fun. Then, in 2007, RoboJam took that same formula and pushed it into a completely different world. Now the jungle was gone, replaced by robots, machines, and a weird sci-fi academy kind of vibe. Underneath, it was still built on the same simple buzzer chaos, but the presentation made it feel fresh again. RoboJam also started experimenting a bit more, even adding AI opponents, which made the series feel slightly bigger and more structured than before. That same year came Monster Rumble, and this one might have had the strangest personality of the whole series. Instead of monkeys or robots, everything was built around cartoon monsters, carnival energy, and kid-friendly chaos. Even the name tells you exactly what it wanted to be: loud, frantic, and a little ridiculous. It was still the same basic formula, but by this point it was obvious that the real idea behind these games wasn't the theme. It was the room. Every version was really just another excuse to throw 4 people into a bunch of short, chaotic minigames and let the buzzer controllers do the rest. By 2008, Dino Den arrived and pushed that even further. This time, the theme shifted to dinosaurs, but the more interesting change was in the structure. Dino Den added team minigames and mixed co-op with versus play, which made it feel a little more social and a little less like pure panic. It still had the same easy-to-read, kid-friendly energy, but now the room wasn't always just competing. Sometimes it was surviving together. And then came Ace Racers, also in 2008. This was the point where the series started stretching its own identity. Instead of leaning fully into random jungle or monster chaos, Ace Racers built the theme around toy-like racing and speed. It still belonged to the same family, but you could feel the formula starting to shift. And weirdly, that makes it one of the most interesting entries to look back on now, especially since it stands out as the one major Buzz Jr. game that stayed a PS2 only release. That whole run is what made these games work. Not the graphics, not the polish, not even the themes by themselves. It was the fact that every one of them understood the same basic rule. Party games on the PS2 didn't need to be complicated. They needed to be readable, fast, and just chaotic enough to turn a normal room into a loud one. And for a while, these games absolutely nailed that. But while the Buzz Jr. series was proving how far Sony could push that buzzer formula, something else was starting to show up right beside it. Something that kept the same party game energy, but changed one huge thing. It got rid of the controller completely. EyeToy Play was where PS2 party gaming started to feel completely different. Released in 2003, it replaced buttons with a camera and turned the player's own body into the controller. You stood in front of the TV, waved your arms, punched at the air, dodged objects, and let the camera track your movement. And for the time, that felt futuristic. But the biggest change wasn't just the technology, it was where the fun was happening. With the Buzz Jr. games, most of the chaos stayed on the screen. With EyeToy, half of the entertainment moved into the room itself. Watching someone flail around, miss a target, or completely overreact to a minigame became just as funny as the game. That made EyeToy instantly memorable, and it helped push PS2 party gaming into a much more physical direction. Then, in 2004, EyeToy Play 2 arrived. This was where the idea started feeling less like a novelty and more like a real format. Sony had already proven that camera-based minigames could work, but Play 2 gave the concept more confidence, more content, more polish, and more proof that this wasn't just a one-time gimmick. At the same time, though, some of the limits were starting to show. EyeToy could be funny and impressive, but it also depended on setup, space, lighting, and a camera that had to read movement well enough to keep the illusion alive. It looked simple when it worked, but it was never quite as effortless as pressing a buzzer. By the time EyeToy Play 3 released in 2005, the formula had become one of the most recognizable social gaming ideas on the PS2, and that's what makes it so interesting to look back on. Because Play 3 proves that EyeToy was big enough to become a real series, but it also feels like the point where the future of this kind of party gaming started getting less clear. The idea still worked, the games were still fun, but now both EyeToy and the older buzzer-based games were running into the same problem. They depended on extra hardware, and that became one of the biggest reasons this whole era didn't last. Buzz needed the buzzers, EyeToy needed the camera, and both of them only really worked when people were willing to buy into a very specific setup in their living room. That's fine when the idea feels new, but much harder once the novelty starts wearing off. Then the next generation made things even worse. As gaming moved forward, online multiplayer got bigger, party games stopped being such a central part of console identity, and hardware-based gimmicks became harder to carry from one system to the next. Later, PlayStation generations didn't keep this exact style alive, and the future of party gaming moved more toward things people already had or toward different kinds of motion and social play entirely. In the end, these games faded because the kind of living room magic they depended on was slowly disappearing too. Even if these games disappeared, the memories didn't. And maybe that's what matters most. Not how long they lasted, but that they gave us moments worth remembering. So if you remember even a small part of this era, I'm glad you got to live through it. Now, I'll let you get back to making more good memories, my friend.